have a breaking news alert for you. It's finally here. The Supreme Court has made a decision on President Trump's tariffs. This is a huge case, a big ruling. It comes right before the State of the Union. And Shannon Bream, of course, is standing by with us. Shannon, do we have an initial thought on what the ruling is?
We do. We've got a very fractured opinion, but initially what it says, we know it's authored, the primary opinion, by the Chief Justice, and says essentially that this IEPA, this law that grants the president emergency powers, did not, it looks like by this first blush reading by the Chief Justice here, does not give him the power to levy these tariffs that he's levied. Part of this initial opinion says, the words regulate and importation, the president says that gives him the independent power to impose tariffs on imports from any country, any product, any rate, any time. These words, it says, cannot bear such weight. We know we've got a dissent by Justice Kavanaugh, by Thomas and Alito, it looks like, and those were the three we thought during the arguments, if anyone would be persuaded to allow the president to move forward with these tariffs, they would be the ones to do it. So at first blush, like I said, there are multiple parts and concurrences to this opinion, but it looks like what the primary holding is going to be is that these tariffs cannot be used in the way that the president had tried to use them. Let me get you to the closing paragraph that we have in this initial opinion here. It says, the president asserts the extraordinary power to unilaterally impose tariffs of unlimited amount, duration, and scope. In light of the breadth, history, and constitutional context of that asserted authority, he must identify clear congressional authorization to exercise it, meaning if he wants to do it, he's got to show that Congress has allowed him to do it. But they say IEPA, this emergency powers law, contains no reference to tariffs or duties. The government points to no statute in which Congress used the word regulate to authorize taxation. And until now, no president has ever read IEPA to confer such powers. We claim no special competence in matters of economics or foreign affairs, but we claim only, as we must, the limited role assigned to us by Article 3 of the Constitution. Fulfilling that role, we hold that IEPA does not authorize the president to impose tariffs. We'll keep reading. That is the first blush, authored by the Chief Justice John Roberts.
All right, so as I'm sure you guys have heard, the Supreme Court has ruled against Uncle Trump in the tariffs, but then there's always a but. And this is the reason why I like Uncle Trump, right? There's always a but, there's always a backup plan in this whole thing. And, that's one of the things that I really respect about Uncle Trump. He's literally trying anything and everything to ensure that he gets the job done and all of his promises, right, are fulfilled. He's doing everything possible. Now, I want to take you guys to what Scott Bessent had to say in response to what the Supreme Court ruling ended up being. Check it out.
I would also like to take a moment to address today's Supreme Court ruling, and I would note that I did not change a single word in my speech post the ruling. President Trump will always put our national security and Americans first. And as I have said before, the president has multiple tools in his toolbox. Let's be clear about what today's ruling was and what it wasn't. Despite the misplaced gloating from Democrats, ill-informed media outlets, and the very people who gutted our industrial base, the court did not rule against President Trump's tariffs. 6 justices simply ruled that IEPA authorities cannot be used to raise even $1 of revenue. This administration will invoke alternative legal authorities to replace the IEPA tariffs. We will be leveraging Section 232 and Section 301 tariff authorities that have been validated through thousands of legal challenges. Treasury's estimates show that the use of Section 122 authority, combined with potentially enhanced Section 232 and Section 301 tariffs, will result in virtually unchanged tariff revenue in 2026. And with
Bing, 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 bing. Trying anything and everything possible. Oh, well, the Supreme Court ruled that I can't use this type of legal standing in order to get it done. All right, fine, fair enough. I'll use this other legal standing to ensure that I still get it done. How about that? And these ones have already stood up to scrutiny. So, what are you going to do now? You see why I like Uncle Trump, man? You see why I like him? Always thinking ahead. Always thinking ahead. See, he didn't sit around on his hands and was like, we got this in the bag. Nope. Hey, let's come up with a plan B. Because if the Supreme Court rules against us, we got to make sure that we can keep this ball rolling. What's the plan B? Matter of fact, let's make a plan B and C. All right? Because Democrats are going to be angry about this if we have to resort to our plan B. So what's a plan C? All right? We got the plan B nailed down. What's the plan C as well? Throwing anything and everything at the wall to see what sticks. I love it. Here's Uncle Trump himself actually talking about it a little bit here. Check it out.
A 10% global tariff under Section 122, over and above our normal tariffs already being charged. And we're also initiating several Section 301 and other investigations to protect our country from unfair trading practices of other countries and companies. A new record. We set a record every time. Well, thank you very much for being here. The Supreme Court's ruling on tariffs is deeply disappointing, and I'm ashamed of certain members of the court, absolutely ashamed, for not having the courage to do what's right for our country. I'd like to thank and congratulate Justices Thomas, Alito, and Kavanaugh for their strength and wisdom and love of our country.
Yeah, absolutely. Big shout out to Clarence Thomas, man. Justice Thomas. Man, ain't he great? Ain't he great? Always coming out with the most intelligent, either dissents, right? In this case, which unfortunately we had some Republicans that went along with the Democrats who always disagree with Uncle Trump. Kind of interesting how that works. But it's interesting how they rule against Uncle Trump, but when it was the Biden administration, when they wanted to do the student loan forgiveness, every Democrat, oh yeah, they can just forgive student loans, right? The Biden administration, yes, they can do it. They can do it. Okay. But anything and everything Trump attempts to do, nope, can't do it. Nope, he doesn't have the authority. Nope. Crazy, man, crazy. And you know what? I came across this clip, and I'm happy that I did. Jake Tapper, or wait, is this Jake Tapper? I be mixing up the names sometimes. Yeah, Jake Tapper, on CNN. He asked the legal expert on CNN what the situation was going to be, and take a listen to the response.
CNN's Vanessa Yurkevich is here. Vanessa, give us the reality check. Can President Trump impose these new tariffs?
Yes, he can, Jake.
CNN's
Because, of course, immediately after the Supreme Court ruled, Trump issued new tariffs, and Jake Tapper's like, legal analyst, can Trump actually do this? Yes, he can. As a matter of fact, he can. He sure can. So even CNN admitting that, yeah, Trump can do it. Now, I want to take you guys back to the origin story of this whole situation, and it stems from a Vernon Hills toy seller. I want you guys to check out this story because this is what this whole court case kind of stemmed from. Check it out.
Our company was threatened. Our 500 employees were threatened by this. And we're not a company to stand by idly, so we wanted to take action.
The company took action by filing a lawsuit against the Trump administration. While many tariff cases were filed, Learning Resources became the plaintiff in the case heard by the U.S. Supreme Court. Because the Constitution gives Congress the right to impose tariffs, not the president, the Woldenberg family, who owns the company, knew the law was on their side and the high court would rule in their favor.
We'd like our money back. They didn't have any issue taking it. They shouldn't have any issue giving it back. We know they didn't comment on it today, but we trust the process will play out.
The SCOTUS ruling did not lay out plans for refunds. Constitutional law experts say the issue will likely be settled in lower courts, and it may take a long time.
There have been plenty of cases in the past where the court has said that some action was unlawful or even unconstitutional, but for various reasons, for reasons of reliance or settlement, people just don't get back the money that they've paid in those cases.
Meantime, President Trump is looking at Plan B. Using a different statute, he says he will impose a flat 10% levy on all foreign goods. In an angry press conference following the SCOTUS decision, he also took aim at learning resources.
I know the people that brought the lawsuit, and they're sleazebags, major sleazebags.
Stephen Woldenberg says his family does not know President Trump.
We're really just focused on how we can move forward here after the ruling.
Besides being called sleazebags by the president, I asked Stephen Woldenberg if he was concerned about any retaliation from Trump. Woldenberg said the cost of tariffs is much higher than any cost associated with the legal case.
So yeah, there you have it. There's the origin of this whole legal debacle. Learning Resources, I guess, is like a toy selling company, according to this news story here. A toy seller, I guess. I don't know. Anyway, for any liberals or middling Republicans or Democrats who are crying and complaining that Trump is still attempting to move forward with these tariffs, even though the Supreme Court ruled against him, I want to remind you all that the Biden administration literally did the same thing. And you had somebody by the name of Alexandria Ocasio-Cortez who literally went on national television on CNN telling all of their viewers that, yeah, the Biden administration should ignore the Supreme Court ruling, even though they just ruled against them. Even if you don't believe me, y'all know I always come with clips, baby. Thank goodness for the internet, right? Check it out.
There has been thought, I believe, given to this. Senator Ron Wyden has already issued statements, for example, advising what we should do in a situation like this, which I concur, which is that I believe that the Biden administration should ignore this ruling. I think that the courts have the legitimacy and they rely on the legitimacy of their rulings. And what they are currently doing is engaged in an unprecedented and dramatic erosion of the legitimacy of the courts. It is the justices themselves, through the deeply partisan and unfounded nature of these rulings, that are undermining their own enforcement.
So you're saying the Biden administration should ignore this court, but what does that look like? What does that actually mean?
I think the interesting thing when it comes to a ruling is that it relies on enforcement. And it is up to the Biden administration to choose whether or not to enforce such a ruling.
So they can choose whether or not to enforce a ruling. They don't have to abide by it. Interesting. So it's okay when they do it, but it's a problem if Trump attempts to do it? Gotcha. And notice how Anderson Cooper didn't even really push back. But I guarantee you, had that been Scott Bessent, had that been Uncle Trump, had that been Marco Rubio, J.D. Vance, or any other Republican, right, going on CNN and saying that, there would have been automatic pushback. Oh, well, that seems authoritarian, isn't it? That seems pretty fascist, doesn't it? Some silly statement, buzzword they would have thrown out there. Instantly would have thrown it out there if one of them would have said the exact same thing, but nothing. As a matter of fact, even Joe Biden bragged about ignoring the Supreme Court. Check it out.
Supreme Court blocked me from relieving student debt, but they didn't stop me. So far,
the Supreme Court blocked me from relieving student debt, but they didn't stop me. Could you imagine if Trump stood on stage and said those exact same words? Yeah, the Supreme Court blocked me, but they didn't stop me. Oh, this is fascist. Trump's a dictator. The whole nine. It just would have been a whole mess. Oh, my goodness. I just had to show you guys that because I thought that was quite interesting that none of these liberals, none of these Democrats had anything to say when the Biden administration was blatantly ignoring the Supreme Court. But I guarantee you they're going to be all in a tizzy, losing their minds over Trump trying to still implement his tariffs right now. There's going to be a massive double standard going on. Massive. But anyway, y'all get in the comments. Let me know your thoughts and your opinions. Shout out to Uncle Trump, man. Still attempting to get the job done. Right? Still attempting to get the job done. No, even though the Supreme Court just is ruling against him, even though he's fighting against Democrats, he's fighting against rhinos. As a matter of fact, the reason why the SAVE Act, right, hasn't been brought up for a vote, well, it's partially, in major part, because of John Thune. Goodness gracious, can we get him out of there? South Dakota, please. But then also, it's Mitch McConnell, or actually his assistant, because Mitch McConnell, he's like doing the whole Biden thing, like the lights on but nobody's home kind of situation. So it's up to us to make sure that we get these rhinos out of our party so that we don't have to deal with this mess. And so that Uncle Trump can fulfill what he promised he was going to do. All right? But anyway, stay safe out there. Peace and love. I'm out.